Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Peluso, and this is my presentation on challenging my hacking skills. Penetration testing on a Metasploitable 2 virtual machine can be used as a valuable exercise to access the security of your network or system. Metasploitable 2 is intentionally vulnerable and it is used for testing and educational purposes. For planning is to properly prepare the VMs will need to be installed and set up the testing environment. Under organizing, once logged in, the programs will need to be installed, updated, and registered to have proper access to Nikto, Nmap, and Nessus. Since I have the virtual machines already updated and ready, I can skip to the performing to the lab. I will use Nmap, Nikto, and Nessus to scan for open ports and services, and gather information about the versions running and vulnerabilities within the system. I can then research the vulnerabilities and find ways to update them to the current versions to mitigate them from exploits. Throughout the penetration testing process, I will document every step, tool used, and result obtained. Include detailed description of the vulnerabilities, the exploited methods, and the potential impact of successful attacks. Lastly, I would create a comprehensive report summarizing the findings and highlighting the risk associated with the vulnerabilities. Include detailed remediation recommendations to address each identified weakness. Lastly, I would restore Metasploitable 2 to its original state so testing could continue in the future. Penetration testing is highly valuable to an organization because it simulates real-world cyber attacks, providing an in-depth assessment of the organization's security posture. By actively probing and exploiting vulnerabilities in systems, applications, and networks, penetration testing identifies weaknesses before malicious actors can capitalize on them. This proactive approach allows the organization to strengthen its defenses and prioritize security investments effectively. The insights gained from the test enable the organization to assess the effectiveness of existing security controls, comply with industry regulations, prevent data breaches, and bolster incident response capabilities. The penetration testing fosters a security-conscious culture by raising awareness among employees and stakeholders about the importance of cybersecurity best practices. Overall, penetration testing is an essential tool for risk management and enabling organizations to fortify their defenses, protect sensitive information, and safeguard their reputation in an increasingly complex and evolving threat landscape. If a failure occurs while conducting the penetration test, it's essential to take immediate action to rectify the situation. Communicate the issue to relevant stakeholders, including the organization's management and the Metasploitable 2 VM owner or administrator. Investigate the cause of the failure, assess the impact, and determine if any harm was caused to the system or network. Learn from the failure and update the penetration testing procedure to prevent similar issues in the future. Emphasize the importance of adherence to best practices and proper authorization for all penetration testing activities. Additionally, consider seeking external assistance from experienced cybersecurity professionals to address any deficiencies and ensure the penetration testing process is conducted effectively and safely. By using the Nmap command that is listed on the slide below, it's showing Metasploitable 2 IP, which is 192.168.56.111, and it shows its open ports. For the Nikto scan, by using Nikto-H and putting in the IP address, this shows the vulnerabilities within Metasploitable 2, which one of the vulnerabilities show that an anti-clickjacking XFrame options header is not present. This shows that an OWASP scan was conducted and lists different vulnerabilities. Here we can see that there is a hash disclosure, MD5 crypt vulnerability. This scan shows that there are multiple vulnerabilities. One of the critical ones is that there is a Samba padlock vulnerability. A risk assessment is a systematic process of identifying, analyzing, and evaluating potential threats and vulnerabilities that could impact an organization's assets or operations. It aims to quantify and prioritize these risks to inform decision-making and develop appropriate mitigation strategies to minimize the impact of potential adverse events. For the Samba block vulnerability, this could allow unauthorized users to bypass access controls and gain unauthorized access to shared resources on the network. The severity of the risk depends on the sensitivity of the shared data and the attacker's capabilities. However, on the risk assessment, I put it as a high and likely due to the vulnerability and the criticalness that it was assigned. For the hash disclosure, the MD5 crypt, this is considered weak due to its susceptibility to brute force attacks, making password hashes vulnerable to disclosure. If an attacker obtains hash passwords, they can attempt to crack them offline, compromise a user account, and potentially lead to unauthorized access. On here, I put it as likely and medium. For the anti-clickjacking X-frame options header, the absence of this object exposes web applications to clickjacking attacks. Clickjacking enables attackers to trick users into unknowingly interacting with the malicious content by overlaying it on top of legitimate web pages, leading to potential data theft or unauthorized actions. The current risk assessment for cybersecurity threats are continuously evolving with increasing sophistication and techniques used by threat actors. Organizations face risks from ransomware attacks, supply chain vulnerabilities, data breaches, phishing campaigns, and zero-day exploits. Currently, the status of our system is in a poor state. The software is outdated and needs to be corrected. Sombet and Bind are two major concerns that need to be corrected and updated immediately. Password strength is also on the low end, so it is recommended to change passwords to have a higher level of complexity. To enhance Samba server security, regularly update with the latest patches, enforce strong authentication, implement granular access controls, and isolate it through network segmentation. For hash disclosure, improve password security by upgrading the hashing algorithm to SHA-256, bcrypt or Argon2, and applying cryptographic salts to password hashes. Additionally, enforce password rotation to reduce the risk of hash cracking. For anti-clickjacking, protect against clickjacking attacks by setting the X-frame options header to deny or same origin on the web server. Additionally, implement content security policy and frame busting JavaScript code to control content loading and actively prevent framing from malicious websites. For the expected results for this lab, the regular updates and patching for Samba would ensure known vulnerabilities are addressed, reducing the risk of unauthorized access. Upgrading to stronger hashing algorithms and salting passwords would significantly increase the time and effort required for attackers to crack passwords, enhancing password security. And by setting the X-frame options header and implementing the CSP would prevent clickjacking attempts, safeguarding users from interacting with maliciously framed content. Finally, by corrected a majority of these issues, the critical vulnerability should be decreasing. To establish strong mitigation techniques, I would start off with an assessment. I would conduct thorough vulnerability assessments including Samba, password storage, and web application security. Next, I would identify and prioritize vulnerabilities based on severity, potential impact, and the likelihood of exploitation. Then I would select appropriate countermeasures for each vulnerability, focusing on best practices and industry standards. After that, I would deploy and configure the chosen countermeasures on the relevant systems and applications. Then I would verify that the countermeasures are working as intended and have not introduced any new issues. Once the verification process is done, I would need to continuously monitor systems for any sign of intrusion or new vulnerabilities. Finally, I would educate users and administrators about security best practices to reduce human error-related risks. Strategy plays a crucial role in reducing risk and hardening a system. Whether it's a business strategy or a cybersecurity strategy, the overarching goal is to minimize vulnerabilities and potential points of failure. This list are some effective and efficient ways for system hardening. Overall, strategy reduces risk and hardens a system by proactively identifying vulnerabilities, allocating resources effectively, adopting best practices, and ensuring preparedness to respond to incidents. It helps organizations build a resilient system that can withstand various threats and ensures that the continuity of critical operations. I have tried to update Samba and ISD bind service, but the screenshot on the right shows that updates cannot go through. I tried to do multiple fixes, but still had no luck with updating that either. After further researching, it appears that Metasploitable 2 is meant to act as an open vulnerability system and is not meant to be updated. This would explain the issues I was having while trying to patch and update the system. Since the updates could not be completed, firewalls had to be configured and services had to be stopped to help decrease the vulnerabilities. For the VNC vulnerability, I also tried to change the password for it, but I ended up locking myself out, and that took about an hour and a half to figure out how to get back into the system. Based off of the information I pulled from the scans earlier, I would choose to work the most critical vulnerabilities first. This could be replacing the software with new up-to-date software or upgrading and installing the current software. Any ports that are not needed should be closed, and any services that are running that are not needed should be stopped. I expected that I was going to be able to update the software within Metasploitable 2, but unfortunately I had to resort to an alternative method to make the corrections for apt-get and app-upgrade because they did not work. I thought by finding videos on how to update the system would be easy, but it took hours of research to get myself in the right direction. It took it took me almost 2 hours to get back into Kali after I completed the NC vulnerability update to change the password. This vulnerability was more intricate than anticipated. For the lessons learned, I would say research the systems before they were being used, as it would have saved me a lot of time if I knew that Metasploitable 2 could not receive updates. Learn about what updates that you're going to make and what they do after they are completed. Had I known this, I wouldn't have locked myself out, and if I would have known it, I wouldn't have tried it. So I would have researched a different vulnerability and saved myself a lot of time. Grant yourself additional time for trial and error, as it took me a lot of time to figure out what I had to do, and even then, unexpected errors ultimately delayed me. Find discussion boards of experts that could try to advise on issues that you're having, and this can be done through videos or posting questions on public forums. And here are some references that helped me through my research.